tell me who you are, what you do, and how we know each other, please?
Yeah, my name is Regan Smith. I am a florist and I own Arms of Persephone Floral Design. We specialize in weddings, events, retail, funerals, pretty much wherever there are flowers, we are also there.
Mm-hmm.
And you and I know each other because we work in similar circles. You're a photographer, I'm a florist, so our paths cross often. And you've actually had the pleasure, I hope, of
very much so
coming alongside us and partnering us as we execute weddings, which has been really cool.
Yeah.
You've put your hands and your money where your mouth is, which has been really awesome to see. And I feel like we're both very ideologically in line with what our work means and what we value about our work. Mm-hmm. So I feel like we've stayed in contact just because we like each other more than anything.
Absolutely. Yeah. I'll say it right now. I do like you.
I like you too.
I'm not ashamed. Okay. And I'm excited to talk about this specifically because I was at your shop working there part-time at a very particular change of your career. Yeah. So I will get into that later. But I was wondering first if you could tell us, just generally or how much you want to go into is up to you, your start in floral design.
Yeah, I started in floral design because I was burnt out on everything else. I was a copywriter. I had a background in writing and performing. And when I graduated high school, I was at a crossroads between do I go to theology school or do I go to musical theater school?
The classical question.
Yeah, inside us there are two wolves, and I chose theology school, but that part of me never really left. And by the time I had kind of completed my role as a copywriter, I needed a break. But anybody who's creative will tell you that being creative is almost like a form of oxygen for us. Mm. And I was so looking for something to put my hands to and kind of came across floral design, just putting together stuff for a friend's party and was like, oh, I can do something with this. I started doing it as a hobby, and then friends and family found out, started asking me to do things for birthdays. My first ever order was a funerary order, which is why I hold funerals in such high regard. Yeah. Got to do a full wedding, and that was at the end of 2019. I was like, my future is bright. I'm going to grow. I'm going to do all these weddings. And then it was 2020 and I took a step back and realized I needed some more time to learn. So I put myself under a mentor. I started working alongside more experienced florists so that I could get the kind of tricks of the trade. And then by the time I moved out to St. Petersburg from where I was living in Dallas, I was ready to kind of go out on my own and make my floral business for myself.
That's right. I forgot about the Dallas part of it all.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
How long were you there for?
I was there for 5 years. So I was in school for 3 and then I graduated and my whole world kind of turned upside down. I got married to my husband a week after graduation and 2 months after we graduated, he was diagnosed with Hodgkin's lymphoma. So everything we thought our lives would look like very rapidly turned on its head. But I think it was for the better because we very quickly realized our priorities and what we were committed to. And it kind of helped us change our minds. Life is so short. Why would you continue down this set career path for yourself when you can explore all sorts of wonderful career paths that bring you joy. Yeah. So it's been really awesome to get to navigate that with him. And when we moved back to Florida to be closer to family, it's even better now to get to do it in a place that I've called home for so much of my life, which is awesome.
That is amazing. It's funny you mentioned that too, because the last interview I did was over this weekend with a family friend of mine, and she just beat breast cancer. Wow. And the fact is I don't wish cancer on anybody or any ailment, right? We don't want that in society. Hey, let's figure out how to get it out of here. But the gift that it brings is just perspective, I think is a really big part of it. And to have that happen in, I'm guessing your younger 20s, earlier 20s at that point is something that some people do not figure out until the middle of the end of their life. So the fact that you guys took that with stride and said, what do we want now that we have this chance to keep on going? And to just go for what you two want to do is, it's very admirable.
Thank you.
And I'm really happy that you guys are now past that stage of your life, and we can move forward, So it's really cool. Thank you for opening up about that. I was wondering too, since you've been in business, it sounds like you started around 2020 or 2021 for yourself.
I think it was like per the government.
Yeah. Yeah.
Arms of Persephone was founded in 2021.
Okay. Mm-hmm. All right. That's solid. Okay. Yeah. So you are also a mom though too now since 2024. Yeah. Yes. So I was telling, I know you had opened up about the similarities that you see between starting your business, like your baby business, and then also having a physical baby, human baby. And I was wondering if you could tell us what kind of like that first year of motherhood reminded you of and similarities of that.
Yeah, it's something that I kind of had an inkling about when I was first starting my business, because I had friends who were embarking on like their parenthood journey simultaneous, and we would be on the phone together and I would be like, oh my God, I can't say this to their faces, but this sounds so familiar and relatable. Because when you start something new like that, when you're initiating a huge change in your life and trying to grow something from scratch, the buck really stops with you. Like, you are mommy, both to your business, to your baby. And that can be an incredible thing because you're figuring things out on your own. You're setting your own bar, your own schedule, your own ideal client. But you're also doing that almost entirely alone. I would say most business owners, 90% of their jobs in that first year is they are doing everything. They are their social media manager, their salesperson, they're doing the actual work that they're selling and editing it and closing out an account and bookkeeping and when I think you're working 25/8 towards something like that, in a similar way, when you're with a baby, you are changing the diapers, making and washing the bottles, doing all of those daily maintenance things. And it falls directly on you to do that. I think that people who start businesses should be encouraged that is a very normal feeling, and to seek opportunities to build connections wherever they can, because that level of community and connection will kind of break you out of this idea that you're doing it entirely alone, because you don't have to. Like, even with a baby, the more you can put yourself around fellow parents, regardless of whether that you would parent exactly the same they would and vice versa. Same thing with fellow business owners. Like, even if you're not exactly the same, you're both kind of just figuring it out. And to be able to figure things out with someone, it takes a lot of the pressure off of you, and it humanizes the people who are doing like what you see and want to be doing, so that you don't feel like you're trying to reach this unattainable bar. Like, everybody is having successes, but everybody is also doing like hours and hours and hours of labor in the background. Yeah. And that's okay. That's just like a part of trying something new and figuring it out.
Well, I mean, I've babysat a lot of babies, and it really is like, at one point you were trying to help this person survive, just like the basic things. It's like, please don't choke on that. Please eat. Please, I need to now change your diaper, all these things. And, but it's also about growth too.
Right.
Those two things coincide, and that happens with the business too, because if you were to stop doing the marketing, especially at the beginning, and all these other things, like, you will starve the business and it will not succeed. But it's also fun to see it like put so much pressure on yourself to do it, I guess. Right. Maybe that's not the right term, but to see it grow.
Yes.
So,
and it's very rewarding.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. You're crying and you're straining, and all of a sudden you have spit up on you, in both situations. I don't know how, but it happens. Like, there is a mess of some type going on at all times. Yeah. But there's a lot of beautiful things to see grow at the same time. So that makes a lot of sense to me. Yeah. So over the years in your business, your way of communication and artistic approach with your clients has changed, as all great ones do. And I was wondering if you could tell me, like, what's the difference today and how has that impacted you? Like, the changing of maybe how you talk to your clients and just how you approach like the art side of it.
Yeah, I think that I realized that I'm not necessarily looking for a particular style of design so much as I'm looking at an attitude towards design. So I see couples doing, particularly in wedding work, but this is applicable to pretty much anything we do creatively. I see people trying to force the flowers into shapes that they don't want to, like those tight balls. There's flower foam everywhere, which is a microplastic that, like, I lie awake at night thinking about. And then there's this sort of forcing of like, well, this is what TikTok tells me I'm supposed to be doing. Yeah. This is what my mom is telling me I'm supposed to be doing. And anytime there's that kind of forcing, instead of letting the flowers do what they're supposed to do, or letting the event be what it's supposed to be in that moment, and with all of its perfection and all of its imperfection, anytime there's like a bend towards trying to fit all of that into a tight box, and I see that in like the way a client communicates, and what they prioritize, that's when I usually hit pause and I think, okay, is this the right relationship for both of us? Because my approach and attitude towards it is we should let the flowers go where they want to go, be at their best in their best form without forcing anything. We should also let like what we design for you exist as this like unique and independent and beautiful thing with all of its like beauty and its like natural organic flaws. So if you're on board with that, you want to explore that, awesome. But if I start to see a resistance towards being flexible with the constraints of like our work, and being flexible with, well, we don't necessarily have to follow every trend for this to be trendy, actually. Yeah. Like, then I feel like we're, if I don't see that connection, then I usually find a gentle way to say, I think that you would be best served with somebody who sees the work the way that you do. Yeah. It's not necessarily that I don't like what you're doing. It's that like my attitude toward it is different. Yeah. And I want you to be with somebody who values what you value in the work. Yeah. Sometimes it's not the same. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, too, I think there's so many people that are coming into an artistic form with a lot of wedding vendors specifically that they're not necessarily in the art world. So you don't see things the same, and you are looking on like Pinterest for your design usually to begin with. And to see like someone with a budget of maybe $100,000 with their wedding, they're like, why can't you do that for 10 or whatever? Right. And, so yeah, there's a lot of like expectations, and there's a lot of like teaching involved. Correct. And you can go in to a vendor and not have that mindset and then come out and be like, oh, I get it now. And your mindset has shifted. But I think there can be a misalignment when someone walks out and they're like, no, it's either my way or we're not, like, we can't do it that way. Right. And, that can be hard to do. Yes. When you're trying to let the flowers kind of lead you. Right. And I don't have this dedicated on my paper, but I was wondering if you could tell me what sustainability means to you in that way, because to me, working with the flowers is a way to do that. But could you kind of describe more how you see sustainability and how you use that?
Yeah, I think sustainability gets thrown around like crazy, especially like in the floral world. And I have a slightly more holistic view of it, rather than a very like puritanical view of it. Because we still use floral foam sometimes, which again is a lot of microplastics, because we're in Florida and we're at the limitations of Mother Nature on so many different levels. And I think that that's where I approach sustainability, in terms of like our process is, how are we working with the earth and not against it? Like, how are we designing things with as little floral foam as possible? How are we picking florals that are in season? So then earth is already naturally producing those instead of pushing it beyond its boundaries in like some sort of greenhouse system. How are we sourcing from in the United States so that we're not wasting jet fuel to get the flowers to us? And how are we disposing of those flowers? Are we composting them? Are we drying them? Are they being repurposed and given away so someone can enjoy them for a longer period of their lifespan? I think that even like as it pertains to like employees and a work environment, like, is your work environment sustainable? Are we pushing ourselves beyond our natural limits as human beings? And when we are pushing ourselves to certain levels, are we providing an income to those people that allows them to sustain that level of commitment? Yeah. So I think it's like in all angles.
Damn, that's a lot to think of.
Yeah.
All the joys of owning a business.
Yes.
Okay, cool. Well, we'll get to the coup later, which I'm excited about. But for now, I know that your designs, in my mind, as an artistic eye, I see a lot of etherealness, a lot of woodsiness aesthetics, which can kind of bring you back to like some old-timey themes.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of modern twists to what you do.
Yeah.
So what art forms influences how you like look at it, and like what inspires you to create these designs?
Yeah. Well, thank you for describing my work in that way. I think it's because I fear nature. I'm like, I'm just going to let you do what you want to do, because it's so much bigger than me. And I think that I draw so much inspiration, both from like what the earth is naturally doing, how flowers naturally lay, because our like little caveman brains like love that. But I also kind of loop in, anything from fashion to film to art to literature. I'm always chasing like a feeling, which means that I could be working with the same product or I could be working with the same color palette, but it's going to turn out wildly different depending on the environment it's going into, the feeling that we're trying to evoke, the time of year, if it's a golden hour wedding or if it's like a late night cocktail hour gala, that's going to feel different. And I look at so many directors, like I love Sofia Coppola, David Lynch. I love James Cameron for this reason. Like, don't sleep on James Cameron. He's my light, my love, and my all. But like, if you look at like Sofia Coppola's work, for example, you look at like all of this texture from like layered fabrics and patterns and these very soft muted colors. And those colors are almost, the washout of them is enhanced by either like candlelight or soft daylight. And I'm thinking about that too when I'm arranging something. I'm thinking about how all of those natural elements kind of come into play. And I think looking at something like film or art, you're watching somebody piece together that final product from a lot of different mediums. And I think that's very helpful in floral design, since we are working with florals, but we're also working in certain environments and we're working with certain vessels and certain, linens and things like that. I really like, I don't know if this is like raw and uncut or if you're going to cut this.
I find out later when I edit.
So
Who knows?
Cool. So cool. Oh, I know what I was going to say. I'm a theme park kid. I'm that
I just
kind
went
of
to Universal.
autistic.
I love it. Yes. Okay.
And I grew up going to all those theme parks and being like immersed in those environments. And I was always so blown away by how the sight lines, the agriculture in that little area, like the way that things are landscaped, even the textures of the materials they're working with, they transport you somewhere. So I'm always looking for something that feels transportive and something that evokes a certain emotional reaction rather than like, trying to look at what's trending or using that as a springboard to design.
Yeah. Well, I am really connected about David Lynch this year specifically because I know he passed away at the beginning of the year, and I'm not someone who grew up with his films per se, or like even just like hearing him talk. So I started Googling all these interviews, and something that I love is that no matter what art form you're doing, it doesn't have to be a movie, it doesn't have to be a show production. You get to be a director of how it goes.
Correct.
And what you just described is thinking, even how is someone going to come into this room and see the flower on the table? How is the light going to hit it? How big is the room? Like, you're thinking of all the aspects around the flowers because it impacts the way people look at it too.
Right.
So I think a lot of the best artists that I've met are not just looking at what they do and trying to produce the same thing every time. They're looking at the whole picture and saying, how can I interact with these things?
Right.
And how can I take something that maybe doesn't have to do anything with flowers and incorporate that as inspiration?
Yes.
And it does. I love it. I think you should have so many interests outside of your own art because it will make things unique. People can't, pocket change and create the same thing as you because they're not getting the same influence. So that's wonderful. Anyways, moving on. I love that. Thank you, by the way.
Yeah.
How do you keep up with inspiration for each new wedding? Like, does that ever get tiring, or how do you deal with that?
I think I take it on a client by client basis. Like, I see my clients as like, they're the only people to ever exist. And this is the only time that they have decided that they like each other enough to be together. That is like such a singular experience. And I think that ascribes like a sense of uniqueness to it that like can't be bought. So when I'm getting to know a client, I'm not just getting to know, okay, well, show me your Pinterest board. I'm saying, what music are you listening to? Like, what love song makes you think of them? Like, how do you connect with your partner? What's your happy place? Because I think if I can infuse who they are into what I design by emphasizing certain textures or certain floral varieties, or going for like a certain shape with arrangements, then there's really no way to do the same wedding twice, because there's no two same people getting married at that particular point in time. I think that a lot of us are maybe quaking in our little boots with how quickly like visual inspiration cycles these days.
So fast.
It's so fast and it's so relentless. And I've definitely had moments where I'm like, oh, this is a copy of a copy of a copy. And how do I reckon with that? But I think when I'm looking at my work, I'm taking some of that inspiration and I'm like, okay, this is cool, but this isn't for Brian and Jen. What is Brian and Jen's version of this? And in that way, there's never this need to do an exact replica, because there's no exact replica of the client either. Yeah.
Too, I mean, not everything has to be like groundbreaking, like boom, not everybody has the budget to do that, and that's fine. And I think that we are lost on that a lot in the wedding industry. Is like, when you look at anything in the wedding industry, I'm so sorry, you are looking at money. You are looking at how much the person spent on each thing. And the reason why we have certain prices is because we really care about what we're doing and we spend that time. And you are buying someone's expertise. Yeah, I just think that like simplicity is beautiful, and so is extravagant, maximalist. But as long as the client is happy with what you're doing and you've really listened to them, not just gone off your own like stuff in your head, that's an art in itself, is art of listening to your client.
Yes. I think that's like the best piece of feedback I can ever get, is like, this feels so much like me. It's so cool. And I think that, yes, we're in a luxury field 100%. But there's something luxurious in and of itself about the intention of an artist and that being seen. And I don't think that needs to cost $1 million.
No.
I think it's something that anybody should be able to access if they're willing to invest even a little bit into it. And I want to honor those people who choose to invest, knowing that like that might be high for them. I can at least give them my attention, and I can listen to them, and I can really intentionally design something special, regardless of whether it's a brand or not. I think there's grandness in the intention behind it.
Absolutely. Yeah. And like you said, just making it theirs. Like, that's the best part about it. You're opening up a new shop. Oh my God.
We're here.
We're here right now. And you've decided to open this in tandem with Erica of the Roaming Petal. So I was wondering, what's the lore of how you two met? And then also, what unique aspects of floral design will you two bring to the shop individually coming together?
It's so funny that you asked us about the lore, because the lore is like the best part. We met like the first weekend she and I were both open in this city. We like happened to meet while she was doing a pop-up, and I had just moved into town, and I was like, oh my God, a flat, like again, I was isolated. So I was like, oh, another person. Oh, please. And we were like, let's get coffee. And then a year and a half later, we got coffee. And then we grabbed 2 bottles of wine, and then we embarked on a journey of partnering in a lot of different ways. We've done really successful things together. We've done things that have failed together, and we've come out on the other side, like learning and growing and still uplifting each other through it. So it was kind of a no-brainer when she was like, I need to get out of my garage. I was like, oh my God, move in with me. We can be roommates. And Erica specializes in workshops. So she connects people to the actual practice of floral design, which I really, really love, because I think her outlook on it is so like, it's all encompassing. Like you can go in and she can teach you very technical, basic, just classic floral design that's very approachable to the average person, but she can also set an intention with you, and you can hold and touch a flower and meditate on that flower and then design. And she's basically putting in the hands of the people what we like love and treasure when we're back in our workspace designing for weddings. And both of us really love the core work that we do. I love executing large scale events. I love doing everyday retail. She loves doing workshops. And we both don't like each other's thing. Not that we won't do it ever, but that we've realized like our cups are filled by our individual like best works. And in this way, like we're really just a really good marriage, because I feel like you can't really respect the work that we're doing without like metaphorically touching grass with Erica, and you can't get interested in what Erica's doing without seeing how beautiful things could be when you start to interact with flowers. So I'm very, very excited to see her host in a space. Her space is right behind you right now. And to get to put hands to flowers. It just
goes to show you too, that if let's say you wanted to start a business, but everything you've seen other people do in that business, you're like, ew, that is not what I want. You can do it different. Like there are so many ways to have the same business name, you know, like she's a florist designer, you're a florist designer on paper, but what you do is very different. So I find that exhilarating. Like it's great. And two, like find a friend that you connect with and have different strengths, and like buy a building together instead, you know, like rent is high, babe. Like
it's so high. It's so high. It's really cool, I think, to get to embark on a journey and to really flesh out this like core idea that I've had, that there is no such thing as competition. I think this is my hot take, that like in an artistic medium, there's no such thing as like business competition, because what she can do is so uniquely different from what I can do. And not just like practically, like obviously we're focusing on different things, but even her eye for design is different from mine. And it's been so cool to maintain these sorts of beneficial relationships and then actually see them flourish and come to life, and for us to continue to like symbiotically support each other is cool.
More of that, please.
Tell me if I need to talk less.
No, you're doing great. I'm the one who needs to talk less.
You stop me if I yap too much. I love to yap.
That's why we're here.
Oh my God. Perfect.
Okay, wonderful. So let's see, where was I? I watched you in a season of big changes and noticed how, because you were pregnant, and I noticed how much you've had to pivot. What in your shop or business has changed, and how has it impacted your life compared to even 2 years ago before you had your little one?
Your perspective of time shifts infinitely when you know that every minute that you're working on your business is a minute spent away from your child. And it's a necessary part of being a business owner and a parent. It happens. But if that's going to happen, what I realized is I need to be enjoying the work I'm doing, or I at least need to know that it is fulfilling and beneficial to like the long-term health of the business. So I think getting real about my ideal client and solidifying what I'm looking for and really asking some important questions in the client onboarding process. Now I'm looking at my schedule and everything that I have going on. I'm like, oh, I'm so excited. Like it addresses at least 2 of 3 requirements. It either needs to financially benefit the business, it needs to be artistically fulfilling and within our style, or it needs to connect with a client that we really love and treasure and who values us. It doesn't have to adhere to all 3, but it has to at least adhere to 2 of those. And that's really helped us like avoid getting stuck in work that makes us hate our work. Because if we have the control to take on the clients that we want to take and the business that we want to take, which we do right now, why wouldn't we run it through that process of checks and balances? I feel like we've also pivoted towards a more like automated, systematic way of hiring freelancers, as you've seen, booking, all of that. We've invested in a lot of technology that takes the 6 to 8 hours I was spending like scheduling people or paying people out or whatever down to like 2 a week, which is so much more manageable. And then I think the biggest piece of it all is that I've simply taken everything that I was doing in those first few years and been like, okay, my job is now to be the business leader. How can I build a team that specializes in some of these things so that they're still getting the intention and the attention that they deserve? Yeah.
Absolutely. Damn, it's tiring.
Yeah, it's tiring. But I think like, it's not insurmountable. You just have to create the infrastructure for it. And most people, when they start a business, think it's going to be them forever. And a lot of times it can be, especially with certain mediums like photography or hair and makeup. But if you want to continue to grow it, it has to have good bones, especially if you want to grow families.
Oh my God. Yeah. Well, too, going back to like the first year of business and it being like your baby, like you're just learning what that business is and what it means to you and how you want to run things and like learning how to do the admin thing is it is the hardest part, in my opinion. It is the hardest part. That is not why we go in the business to like write an email that's formal and then do taxes. Like, no. This is not why I did this. I would have been a tax accountant otherwise. But it's cool to see like once you're in year 4 or year 5 or year 10 or whatever, like you get to look back and say, these are the parts that like from the beginning, from the get-go, this is like the through line, but there's so many other things I was able to change and morph to fit my life now. Cause especially when you take on a client for a certain amount of money, it sounds so great when you get that deposit. But once you start getting into the work and you realize it's not aligned with you, it is really way harder to get up every day and go and spend that time that could have been wisely used somewhere else. So being really intentional about having those boxes ticked for what you need to have a successful like through line is important. So, and it's a privilege to be able to get to that point too, where you're very clear and people are willing to come to you kind of in a certain like time frame or cost frame that they're like, no, we trust you. It's a huge thing. Trust is huge. You cannot work with another client if they do not trust you and you do not trust them. It doesn't work. It just doesn't. And I know we could talk about that later about when it doesn't. When it doesn't, it's a lot of time.
It's a bad time for everybody. Like it's not just us. You know, it's frustrating for the client, and I've heard it and I've seen it vocalized, and I fully understand it. And I think that's why I've been like, okay, we're going to try to avoid this at all costs. Sometimes it happens. People are human, and there's only so much I can do. I cannot be your therapist. I cannot solve like your existential anxiety about your wedding, you know, but I can at least find a way to communicate like what we're actually supposed to be focusing on undistracted. Because again, I don't have a lot of time, so we got to stay focused.
Hey, we're all in some shit, you know, and we got to get through it. So your Florist team, aka the Florist Collective, helps you run AOP. So what's been the hardest part of creatively like creating a cohesive team and what's resulted in like a harmonious group you think that you have today?
I think I took it very seriously when my mentor said to hire slow and fire fast, in the sense that, and I did that after I tried doing it the other way and realized actually that's a bad idea, and they were right the whole time. So like I've definitely made those mistakes. But I think when I got pregnant, I realized, okay, I need to build a team in order to support this through this big change. What am I looking for in that team? And I realized very quickly that it wasn't necessarily a defined skill set or experience or a personality hire. I was really looking for somebody who had aligned core values and an aligned perspective of their work, that it's being done with a level of honor for themselves, for others, and that there is a willingness to grow, because I'm figuring it out too. I like to say that we're a team of girls simply trying our best, because to a certain extent that is what we are. And all of the women who are on my team now, and they are all women, are really, really awesome. None of them came from a floral background. They came from retail, education, food and bev, and they brought that openness to grow to the table and allowed me to grow their skill set, But at the same time, I've given them the freedom to make their own mistakes and try things in their own way, which I think has been really powerful because now they take a certain level of ownership over the business that really helps sustain it when things feel kind of uncertain or we're growing and we're all kind of experiencing growing pains, because I'm growing, they're growing, like we're all able to kind of come together and go one step at a time through it. And we're all working for the same goal, which is to design things with intention and to benefit the community with that to the best of our ability. So I think it was identifying that in someone, identifying someone who's asking more questions, who's taking the extra time to do the grunt work instead of seeing it as beneath them. Because I am like a very bottom up leader to the best of my ability. Like if I'm going to ask somebody to scrub buckets, it's probably because I've scrubbed 10 to 12 buckets already that week, you know, and to see them also taking that shows me that they're willing and able to move into some sort of leadership role and start providing, you know, adding their own value to the business to where it grows to something that like I can never build on my own. And I didn't realize that's what I wanted, but as I built my team, I was like, this is what I want. I want something that's bigger than me, that isn't just Regan the musical, because when I have those unique perspectives, I'm able to do things more efficiently, more intentionally, and more uniquely than if it was just me trying to do everything all at the same time.
Well, to me, I saw you have to like go and do things and then trust other people while you were on maternity leave to do other things, including Erica. And I think the hardest part in my view is just like letting go of that control and trusting someone else, especially with something that you did grow from just a one woman team to now managing. Like that is such a shift from being in control of artistic design and all these other things to like training and letting go in a lot of ways. So was that hard for you to do, or was that pretty like...
I think it's an ebb and flow. I feel like I have to do that in little ways all the time, but I've figured out very quickly that the only way someone is going to be better at something is if I let them actually do the thing and try it for themselves and have the aha moment for themselves. Now, is it worth like staking a whole wedding on something like that? No. But I think that that's where like really clear communication and establishing and driving home those common core values and letting their work flow from that. Like if their goal is to design something with intention, regardless of what mechanics they use, I know that they're reaching for that. And I know that there's ways we can course correct as we go. Like I never fully cut the cord. I'm always still like in the background to be a soft place to land, so that if we need to fix something, if something goes wrong, they're not just like out in the cold. Cause I know what that's been like, because I did that hard work. Right. And the beauty of it is I did the hard work so they don't have to, but I'm still going to put them in positions where they can try something for themselves and take ownership of it. And when they fail, like catch them.
Oh, what an empathetic view, you know, considering what you had been through. Yeah, no, it really, I think it shows the difference between a business that's good to a business that's great.
Thank you.
So I appreciate that, especially as someone who's worked for you. Like, yes, I would like that. My boss to empathize with what I'm doing. What would you say to other small business owners who dream of also starting a family, or maybe are like, oh my God, I am starting a family now, who knew? And how does community come into play with that?
That was very much me. I'm starting a family now. Surprise! I do want to encourage anyone who's thinking about it to think of it in the same way as people who think about spacing out the birth ages of their children, because anybody who's had multiple children will tell you it's very hard to have like a toddler and a baby simultaneously, because they both need such an intense level of care. In the same way, your business is kind of your first baby, and you want to make sure, not that it's necessarily X years older than your first child, but that it's able to stand on its own 2 feet and not have to hold on to you the whole time. Like that concept of I can't be mommy to this anymore because I need to be mommy to someone else. And knowing that you have the team or the infrastructure that if you had to stay home because a babysitter canceled, or you were going to the ER because they tripped and broke their leg right before you're supposed to leave for a wedding, or any of that, you need to make sure that that is shored up and that it could essentially run without you. Not forever, but at least for that period of time where there's pressure. And I think that that's where community comes in, because whether you're, you know, embarking on that journey with your business, or you're simply having a child, period, there's this big lie that's been sold to us that the only way to do family is this like nuclear self-sustaining family structure where it's like mother, father, children. And that just like is not reality in any way, shape, or form, especially for a business owner. And the way we've been doing it for centuries before is leaning on our village and our community to provide attention and care and knowledge and safety to our kids. I think it takes a lot of trust to do that. And I think it's important to build very trustworthy relationships with people that you want to be part of your kid's village. But I think it's extremely necessary to have those people in your life if you're going to try to sustain a business and a family simultaneously.
Wonderfully said. No notes. Okay. So I'm wondering, I know you had talked about your faith in a questionnaire I had sent you before. Could you tell me how your faith connects your life and your work together and what it means to you?
I love that you ended on this. When she sent over the questions beforehand, I was like, what a fun way to ask me a question by opening like the largest can of worms of all time.
Just end it out.
Perfect. I'll just wrap it up with my entire philosophy on life. I did graduate from Bible college, and since that time, I grew up a pastor's kid too. I've been going through a crazy like deconstruction, reconstruction period. So I don't want to say I'm like the poster child for Christian business leadership on any.
That's a different podcast, I think.
Definitely. I'll call Girl Defined later. But I really believe that the praxis of my faith is deeply intertwined in the everyday ways I'm doing my work, because I believe that Jesus was a means, not ends guy. Like, he was way more focused on what your inner self was doing and all of the steps leading up to that outward expression of faith than he was necessarily like the end result of like world Christian domination, which for some reason everybody thinks is biblical, but isn't. And I think for me, that looks like writing kind emails, paying my employees what they are worth, taking care of the earth and honoring it, listening to the guy who comes in to buy flowers for his wife who's in the hospital, and he tells me his wife's entire life story, taking that time with them, like that to me is an expression of my faith. And I think that if you're a Christian business leader, it's not putting, a quote in your Instagram bio. It's like actually living that quote so that in your going, you can make disciples, as we say. And I think a big part of how that pertains to my work specifically is floral design, to my knowledge, has existed as an art medium before the written word. We as human beings have always been attracted to pretty flower look good. And in cultivating that, we've bettered the earth. Now we're kind of industrializing it and pushing the earth beyond her borders, which I don't love. But we cover ofrendas in marigolds. We build huppahs out of birchwood. We put spring and summer flowers on maypoles and dance around them. Like, there's this idea that flowers need to be there for these sacred moments because it reminds us that there's a cycle and that there's an environment and that there's a world that's bigger than us. And I think that regardless of your faith background, there is this idea that creation speaks. And I think my hope is that if people will simply slow down, touch grass, look at what we're presenting to them, they'll really start to hear that creation speaking. And I hope it's to speak to the glory of God in whatever way that looks like for them. That's kind of the mark I would like to leave on my little world. It's so small, but I firmly believe that like my faith is practiced in a lot of little ways instead of these like big grand acts of service.
The wedding industry is it makes you, when you're how do I start this? Where to begin? Oh God. This is why I have a YouTube channel, because I'm going to be doing my own little clips about what I think of it. But what I find fascinating is the human psyche around a wedding is very predicated on people having their own interpretations of what is right, and then also a lot of expectations.
Yes.
And there's also a lot of as a photographer, I've been in a lot of rooms where it's just all men, or it's just all women, or it's like a mom and her daughter, and there's so many points of expression of love and kind of like a opening yourself up. Because a lot of people are closed up, especially men. Men are not crying in front of each other on the daily, telling each other that they love each other. But I've seen that on a wedding day.
Right.
So there's a lot of emotion filled with it. And to be in that space with someone and kind of be a part of that, it requires you to have meaning in your life, I think.
I think so.
And I think that's how you can tell when an artist is really connected to what the meaning behind things mean or are. To someone else who's just kind of showing up the day of to deliver something real quick to get out of there. And I think that is the beautiful thing about knowing the teachings of Christ, is because he was such an intentional person. Yeah. And how could you not want to emulate that? And you are. So I think that's really beautiful. And I have no qualms with that. Speak your truth. I love it. And especially if it involves helping and thinking of other people, that's a good faith to have.
To me, that's the only faith worth holding on to at this point. Everything else is kind of a waste of my time.
Yeah. Yeah. We're not looking for fluff these days.
I'm not. And I think that my view on my faith is way more about making a heaven here on earth than it is reaching some ethereal heaven beyond the grave. I think that that's a great thought to hold on to for people who practice that faith. But I don't think when it comes to the practical act of being a Christian or holding any level of faith, that it's helpful to just be looking to the beyond, see what's happening right now, tune into that, and understand that you're a part of this rhythm that's been set from the beginning of time. Our whole philosophy revolves around seasons changing. That's why we have Persephone, the goddess of spring, in our name. Tune into that. Touch grass, please. I think I'm just begging everyone to touch grass. That's the philosophy you should take from this.
I've said this in Corey's episode. Hug a tree. Yeah. Just go hug a tree.
Just slow down. Let that rhythm carry you instead of getting caught up in this linear idea of perfection. Find the perfection that the world is presenting to you in those little moments.
Also, find the people that want those things for you and not just the appearance of niceties. Actually have a nice time, enjoy the flowers, because you will much more if you're enjoying your day.
Yes.
So all those things. But thank you for telling me that, amazing. Yeah. And you are not alone in that. Lots of other people that will be on this show, to me are kind of my little slices of heaven, because I love people so much. So it's I get to share heaven every time I do this,
Exactly.
Don't wait until the afterlife to experience good on earth. Just don't wait.
Yeah.
Make it good now.
Yes.
You have the option.
Yes.
So anyways, what's a song or album you think people should listen to in their lifetime, Regan?
You kept me up at night last night. I really love Eurus, Eurus by the Oh Hellos. It's one in a cycle of 4 albums, that addresses a lot of what we talked about today. Just go listen to it, pull up the lyrics, sink in with it. It just provides a lot of really beautiful word to cycles and seasons and growth, both internally and beyond. And I feel it's our theme album. So
oh my God. All right. Well, I'll put that when I make a reel or something for you, that's going in the background. Yeah. Okay, cool. Very cool. All right. Well, Regan, we've made it to the end. So thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
I can't wait to come back here in I don't know, a few months time even to see what changes will be made.
Yes.
And we will be doing things in the future. I guarantee it.
Yes,
I guarantee
ma'am.
it. Okay, cool. All right. We did it. You're free.
Hooray.
Hooray. Huzzah.
And released into the wild.
Well, let me know when you're about to put something in the fridge, because I'll get your arms. I'll get your arms. Does that make sense, you know?